So is Ketanji Jackson, a name that even Joe Biden has trouble pronouncing, one of the top legal minds in the entire country? We certainly hope so. Biden's right. Appointing her is one of his gravest constitutional duties. So it might be time for Joe Biden to let us know what Ketanji Jackson's LSAT score was. What did she do in the LSATs? Why wouldn't he tell us that? That would settle the question conclusively as to whether she's a once-in-a-generation legal talent, the next learned hand. It would seem like Americans in a democracy have a right to know that and much more before giving her a lifetime appointment, but we didn't hear that.
It's not a bold statement these days to label Tucker Carlson as a racist, but after his gross attacks on Supreme Court nominee Ketanji Jackson, it's clear we have another instance of the Fox News host taking his personal grievances against people of color too far. So we know that Biden made the historic nomination of Jackson after Justice Stephen Breyer announced his retirement. And during the Biden campaign, he had promised to nominate a black woman to the Supreme Court. This was not just a decision that mirrored his overall inclusive candidacy, but also perhaps a nod to his mistreatment of Anita Hill during Clarence Thomas's Supreme Court hearings way back when. For context, he was chair of the Senate Judiciary, and it's worth looking into just what happened if you were too young. But let's just say Biden did not treat Anita Hill, a black woman and lawyer herself, very respectfully. Jackson is a highly respected legal mind and is currently a judge on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit. If confirmed, she would be the first black woman to serve on the Supreme Court. She went to Harvard Law, where she graduated magna cum laude and was the editor of the Harvard Law Review. You'd think those credentials would speak for themselves, but to someone like Tucker Carlson, who over the years has been obsessed with different markers of elitism, like various Ivy League educations, they still aren't enough. He is now demanding to see her LSAT score. He said, "How did she do on the LSATs? Why wouldn't you tell us that?" That would settle the question conclusively as to whether she's a once-in-a-generation legal talent. Carlson had previously complained that Jackson was picked, quote, on the basis of appearance.
The single most important appointed position in the entire government, and announce in public that you were filling that position on the basis of appearance, not on the basis of skill or wisdom or fealty to the founding documents of the United States, but on the basis of the way the person looks. So it's not a question of saying, we found the most qualified person who happens to look this way. What you're saying is, we found a person who looks this way, who, by the way, may be qualified.
Of course, the internet was ablaze with people calling out the racism of Carlson's segment, taking someone who has worked their entire life and been profoundly successful and making it seem as if they just got lucky. Of course, he never ventured into this territory with any of the recent Republican-backed court nominees. And just for some background, in the legal field, apparently it's rare, if not taboo, to ask about LSAT scores. Richard Signorelli, a former assistant U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York, said that in his long career, he was never asked for his LSAT score by any employer. Nicole Hannah-Jones honed in on the issue and put it quite simply and powerfully. The presumption that black people are dumb is standard white supremacy. Thanks so much for watching. You can follow me on all platforms at Caro Johnson 917.